But then moving to Silicon Valley, like I was really intentional about, I think I've just become too proud. And like, how can I be a little bit more humble? Because if I'm humble, then I'm like more open to learning.
Peter Saddington, your big game hunter. And guys, we have our sights on someone special today.
Only a mother could invest in this idea.
Made this like super artistic.
That is actually absolutely correct. And that's a very, very astute assessment, actually.
True startup story, guys. You got it. Your company just got seed round financed. Congratulations. You're going to the moon. But now you have to scale. You found great talent out in California, New York, Georgia, and even Eastern Europe. So what communications platform will you be using to ensure your international team is always aligned? Well, the answer is easy. Slack.com for Teams. We've used Slack for all of our previous startups, and they've supported us in tremendous ways. And we want to give them a thanks today for supporting VCHunting.com. Did you also know that Slack is a great tool for personal use? Yeah, I use my own personal Slack channel to drop in documents, notes, to-dos, and follow-ups to ensure that my workflow throughout the day is right on course. I promise you, if you try out Slack.com for personal use, you'll end up using it for your team as well. Go to Slack.com to check it out. Welcome everybody to season 2 of VC Hunting. I'm your host, Peter Saddington, and I'm super excited for this conversation we're going to be having. We have our guest is Sofia Garcia, in part of the investment team at Slow Ventures. Sofia,
Hi, Peter.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. And I'm trying my best not to call you John.
Yeah, we were introduced through my brother, so that's a good point to make. But let's just start at the very beginning, because one of the things that VC Hunting is all about is learning the stories behind the venture capitalists themselves, learning about the people behind the money, right? Because that's what really, really matters at the end of the day. And we have lots of entrepreneurs, lots of founders who love watching the show and learning about venture capital funds like yourself. So let's talk about your story a little bit. Give us a little bit of history. How did you get into venture capital, and why are you still here?
That is a great question. And that's a question that I try to ask myself every so often. So I guess I could start from how I got into VC.
Sure.
It's literally, I was having coffee with a founder friend, and I was at that time working for a startup. And I said like, wow, I used to work in an investment bank. And then I feel that being in a startup is so much more exhausting. So
Yes.
it is. So I was like, I need a break. But I learned that I'm really, really good at helping like this like crazy inspiring people like get things done. And I feel like I want to do that on a larger scale, or at least like get to help people without feeling burnt out. And I had a few ideas in mind, and I said, I've always been interested since moving to San Francisco. So I moved in 2014. Like venture capital was never in my vocabulary. So I'm like, who are the people even crazier giving these like people money? So I said, maybe I want to like join a VC firm and just like see how it is. And literally within a couple of days, that friend of mine introduced me to the GP who I work for now. So, I mean, it sounds super easy, but that's how it really happened. But then it took a few months until I actually got a job. So from like that coffee meeting to the introduction to the GP, and then just having tons and tons of like conversations,
Right.
like with different people, like that's pretty much how I ended up here.
And so did he introduce you to Scott or Will?
To Will.
Oh, to Will.
Yeah.
What was it like meeting Will for the first time?
It was actually, I feel that we had that connection, like both personally, professionally. We both love our family, so we like really talked a lot about that. I don't have children, but he did. So just like I was telling him that it was super important for me that at the end of the day that I had time and still part of myself to give when I get home, because just for like the last 15 years of work, I feel like, I'm always like, oh, family is the most important thing for me. But then I'm so exhausted that it usually annoyed me if they needed or asked. So I was like, I just want to come home and be like still happy to spend time with them and see them instead of like, oh my God, leave me alone. I'm tired. And then, I had all of these experience of, I used to work in an investment bank. I started my own company. I then joined a couple of startups, fundraise like Series A, Series B. So I think he was really excited also that I had both like the perspective of coming from a big corporate investment bank and being a well-oiled machine, but also have an experience of like everything is on fire, right? In a startup, and how do we like launch in like 10 locations like in 6 months, which is, I think, really helpful to be working in a VC firm.
Wow. Well, there's Sophia. I love your story. It's awesome, and there's so much that I want to unpack. First and foremost, I love the fact that you're so family oriented, and before we even started this conversation, we were talking about how you don't do social, you don't do Instagram, you don't do Twitter, but you do have a Medium blog, and you've blogged on there twice. And even from those 2 blog posts that I read about you, that you wrote, I could tell that you were really family oriented. So let's go a little bit back here, because we at VC Hunting, we do a little bit of digging. On October 3rd, 2017, in your Medium blog, this is a really powerful story. You said in 2002, you came to America as an immigrant from the Philippines, and you were coming for a better life and a fresh start, like many immigrants. My question is, and there's a lot of family, flavor in there as well. You could tell that you was very family oriented. My question is how did this experience of coming to America in 2002 shape who you are today and gave you the opportunities to go into investment banking and then creating your own startup? What from your parents in that immigration experience crafted you and molded you into Sophia Garcia today?
I think we need like the whole season of your of season 2 to like really unpack that. But I feel like I think you probably I need a few moments to think about this. But first off, I feel like just moving here from a different country, it wasn't as hard with regards to like, hey, I grew up speaking English, so that wasn't hard to learn, versus other people who have to like come here and learn. Also, we've visited the US prior to that, and we've had family who live here who would visit. So, and the Philippines is a very Western country. But I think one of the biggest things I learned is just, and even looking back now, is that it's so different moving to the US when you're younger and you're in your 20s, and all the opportunities that are in front of you, versus for at least like, let's say my parents, the trajectory of our lives, it's like so different. Like we were upper middle class in the Philippines, and because I was younger and I finished school here and I was able to hustle, I was okay like taking jobs that maybe I was overqualified for or I've already done before. But also the other big thing is that I just have a heart for other immigrants and people who come here, because it's a land of opportunities, but you have to know what information is true, which is the best thing to do. You have to be still connected to the right people. Hard work is important, but I think the story of my life is that people have always opened doors for me. And that's something that I'm like, I love doing that for other people, because it changed my life. Like the job that I got like at a asset management firm was like through someone saying like, what are you doing? What do you want to do? Just like simply asking that. And up to my current role, it's like a friend was saying like, what are you thinking about? And just by sharing those things, people can like connect you
Mm.
to someone. If they can't help you, like they can connect you to someone who can. And I think that's something that is like driving me to like even want to stay in VC. So like going back to your last question. So
I love it, and there's so much that I can assert, or rather assume, from your
mhm.
your immigration story. Being an immigrant, I mean, being an immigrant, having immigrant parents, you use the word hustle. I can assume that you got a lot of your hustle, and you were talking about doing jobs that were beneath you or that you were overqualified for, and that hustle. I would have to assume that you got that from your parents, and that was something that enabled you to go to investment banking, do your own startup where everything's on fire and working 20-hour days, to now having the life that you want today. And so would you say that hustle, and this is one of the primary reasons why people can succeed in America today?
I think so. I think that's one of one of those things. But also just in the last couple of years, I think it's a little bit, I don't know the term for it, but it's like I am now in venture capital. Like
Mm,
there's just so much money around, right? Like it's crazy.
there's a lot of
But then,
opportunity.
yeah, and a lot of opportunities. But at the same time, like I've been just like thinking about like besides money and opportunities for people, or at least like how can I make a difference like in the people's lives, not just like giving them money, but actually making them better managers,
I love.
better investors. Like how can I be a light to the people that I work with or the people that I serve? Like it's really been like an interesting journey, like moving to Silicon Valley
Mm,
and seeing all these like success, but also like trying to like stay humble. Because I think I skipped a lot in the beginning where I was working in New York
mm,
in a corporate investment bank. And everything was about like, how can I make more money? How can I
right.
be better than my colleague? Because I need to get
Mm,
promoted.
right.
Like, how can I serve myself? But then moving to Silicon Valley, like I was really intentional about, I think I've just become too proud.
Mm,
And like, how can I be a little bit more humble? Because if I'm humble, then I'm like more open to learning. And
right.
that's something that I lost, just from being like hustling all the time. So it's like counterintuitive. And also I feel like sometimes and that's what I told you, I don't really blog. I don't I don't put something on Twitter because then
I
you can
mean,
go back to it and you can contradict yourself. So like I feel like I'm this one big walking contradiction.
well,
Um,
I think, if I may say, at watching you communicate this to me, I can tell that this is something that is deep in your heart. This is something you're passionate about. It's something you care about. And if I may say, from just watching your countenance as you communicate it, you
mhm.
struggle with the tension of coming from, New York City, big bank, lots of success, selfish, me, to an environment with even more money in Silicon Valley, but also trying to stay grounded and humble, self-aware, beginners and open mindset. It's really great seeing you communicate this, and if I may say, seeing on your face the tension, because this is something that no, this is good. It's real. It's
Yeah,
real.
you should see my head inside my head.
Well,
It's a
it's
mess.
real. No, but that's the real. That's the stuff that I care about, is learning about the
Mhm.
person and learning about the struggles, the tension, the things that keep them up, about how can I be a better person. I knew that all of what you said is true. And the reason I knew it is because in 2014, you were a mentor for mission graduates. And you also worked with Pacific Ventures and introductions. You were a founding partner of Pacific Ventures and Introductions. And so what this was all about, if I remember correctly, was you introducing Filipino people to opportunities. Is that correct?
Yeah, so that's something that I've always wanted to do. So I mean, I haven't really written a lot of like what I'm doing personally or outside of work on my LinkedIn. So I think you got it from there. But I've always been, even when I was in New York, I always volunteered in organizations, again, for like first time college, what do you call that?
Graduates?
People who go, yeah, first time, like they're the first person to go to college from their family.
Right.
And these are like mostly immigrants because
Mm.
that's still something that is important to them, but also just like choosing which college to go to, taking out student loans. And then I think more importantly, and this is with like mission graduates here in San Francisco, but in New York, I was part of it's an organization called Alpha, which is for Latino professionals in all types of jobs, but most of them were also like first-time college graduates in their family.
Mm.
It's so hard if you don't see people in your family who are professionals, right?
And yeah, because
so what
there's
do
no
you do?
model. There's no model.
Yeah. So that's pretty much what I've done with mission graduates here and then Alpha in New York. And then as far as like PVI, so that's something that is like my own consulting thing that I do on the side when I do have time. Because I still consider myself Filipino. So if people ask me, right, like, are you an American? And I'm like, yeah, I am an American. Like, I've lived here for almost half my life. I have an American passport, but I'm also like Filipino and part Spanish. So it's like I'm all of these things, and I feel like I'm so lucky that I'm here, because not only like I can work up to where I am now and given those opportunities, but it's like some people in the Philippines, it doesn't matter how smart they are or how hardworking they are, they're never gonna have like all these things. So I'm like, how can I help them? How can I share my knowledge? And there's this thing called brain drain, right? When there's a lot of smart people somewhere and there's not a lot of opportunities, they leave the best of the best, they say, leave the country. So for me, it's like, how can I bring back like knowledge? And this is just not, so this is something that I start with myself, but I talk to a lot about my friends who already moved here or people who's been here a long time and they have like the heart to do that. It's just like, how do we bridge that? So that's kind of like a side project that I have. But something that is very, very like always like something that I want to do. I'm not sure if I ever will move back home. I'm just so used to like the life here, you know?
Did you know that there's even more value than just audio or video? Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at VC Hunting, and make sure to sign up for the VC Hunting newsletter, where you'll be able to get weekly news on venture capital, startups, founder stories, and the occasional wisdom extracted from Peter's brain. Go to vchunting.com to sign up. And now back to the episode.
Well, I think what you're also speaking to is the tension of professionals like yourself who are immigrants and they're been accustomed. They've normalized the American city life, or if you're in SFO experience, and it's a good life. So it's really a great segue into the final section of that blog on October 3rd, 2017. And I had a question around this. You said at the end of the blog post, you encouraged everyone to stay in the Philippines. So I'm assuming this is around the brain drain, but I found that to be a novel idea, Sophia, because you came over as an immigrant, got all the advantages and all the benefits of the hustle here. Well, you had to work your butt off to get it. But at the same time, at the blog, you're like, everyone else, stay in the Philippines. So is that your way of kind of pushing yourself to say, okay, let's not have the brain drain. Let's make sure that great talent, great ideas stay in the Philippines. Is that a calling to you to get your act together and see if you can drop ship more knowledge and opportunities over there?
Yeah, and I think that the time, or just like at least every year that we develop more technologies of collaboration, and hopefully someday the internet there will be as fast as here because it's really bad. it's like I believe in it doesn't work for all, but there are some companies that have co-located teams, right? I really want the Filipinos to be more of a knowledge worker than people who,
Mm.
I mean, there's like a lot of like BPOs there, or business process outsourcing, which is most of the menial tasks that you usually don't want to do, like low level bookkeeping, transcription,
Right.
and all that stuff. But they can do so much more than that. And there are a lot of companies doing that and opening co-located offices there. And they are becoming more part of the team versus like this black box that you send work you don't want to do and then it comes back like perfect the next day. So that's I've actually advised a couple of startups that have opened offices there, and that's part of like my consultancy with PVI, is that their runway is much more extended. People there are getting paid more than what they would get paid working for a local company.
Mm.
Then the whole, they can stay, they can have a good life, and they're moving up in society as far as social class.
And
Is
hopefully
that's
bringing in great, more knowledge-based jobs, right, to the
Mhm.
market, and elevating the infrastructure there as well. All those
Yeah,
great things.
exactly. All those great things. So yeah, it's both a calling and then a reminder to be that as much as I'm trying to help like my community here in San Francisco, which is now my home, is that I should always, as like a Filipino at heart, like I should always also think of them, and it doesn't take that much, right,
Mm.
for me to help. And then if I open a door or a couple of doors to some people, hopefully they get to like employ and build a company that employs hundreds, if not thousands. So
That's awesome. I love the fact that you're giving back to the motherland. Now, here's just a quick question: Do you consider yourself more Filipino or Hispanic?
I would say Filipino.
Filipino?
That's a funny question,
Because you did
because
include that a little bit, right? You said that you
yeah,
were.
yeah. So I think when I was in New York, I please, whoever is like gonna listen to this, somebody will probably correct me, but like
Well-
I just always when I was in New York, like I tried joining the Asian group, and I felt that like Filipinos more, because of like the Spanish influence, right?
Right.
Like they were just more like closer to what I was used to. And I really just connected with the like Latino professional group that I was part of. And a lot of them are like still good friends of mine, even if I moved here. So that's pretty much what that, how that ended up. But when I do check race or something, I actually check others and I put Filipino. So I mean, they gave me that option, right? So
There's a little bit more Filipino pride, and that's okay. I
Yeah.
think anyone. I can only speak for myself, and obviously you kind of shared it here, but
mhm,
I think most Asians, I think most
mhm,
Asians, especially in the college years, we seek out those groups. I'm Korean, so I hung out with KUSA, the Korean Student Union, and
uh-huh,
see if I could connect with my Korean roots there. It didn't work out that well. Hung out with other Asian groups. I think it's part of the identity process, right, of growing up.
mhm,
And so it was just a curious little question. But let's pivot a little bit here. We've been talking a
sure.
lot about your history, your interests, and what you're doing outside of with PVI. One thing that we talked about on email before we even got on this is that you said that you wanted to spend some time talking about helping founders build great teams and organizations. So my question is how are you doing this today, tactically, at Slow Ventures?
So my tour of duty is actually ending at Slow. So this is a 2-year role. So there's definitely different types of VCs and
Mhm.
different ways that they operate. And so before I came into VC, one of my goals was like, hey, let me learn something new.
Hmm.
And like I learned how VC firms operate, like how investments are made, or actually how investment decisions are made within Slow. But also there's always been a question of like, what do I want to do next, right? Whether it's internal or somewhere else. And that's a combination of like apply what I learned and also what else do I need to learn. But to answer your questions, like wherever I land next, how do I help founders become better managers, better coworkers, just better? And I think it's really like building that strong foundation. What's that? It's like definitely having your North Star and understanding why you're doing what you're doing. And for me, at least, I found it's not bad to say like, hey, I want to be successful and I want to make a lot of money. But then the question is why, right? And for me, right, like this is not gospel or this is not, like not everyone has to agree, but like at least for me, it's like, is this like creating net good? Like that's like super important to me. It's like, yes, you're gonna be successful and rich, and then what? What else? Like,
What else?
Are
What
you
else
also? Yeah, what else is there? Like, it's like lifting people up with you. It's becoming like good example, because I feel that. I mean, you see a lot of it, right? And I think more and more, just from the time that I moved here, like 5 years ago to Silicon Valley, like the founder rock stars, right? No one can do them, you know, they can't do anything wrong as long as they're like in that rocket ship driving the ship like to the like unicorn status. I think there's parallels in that. When I used to work at a corporate investment bank, it's like these like rockstar bankers, like they were making millions and millions of dollars for the bank. Who cares if they were assholes? And I think nowadays that's like, no, that's not allowed anymore. Like you have to be a good person and do the right things, and the right things can be different for people. But I think number one is like really doing some net good.
I love it.
And then founders also, I think, just from my own personal journey, right? From being someone who thought they were always right, just having some sort of humility and asking other people and like just being self-aware of like, how can I be better? Like, I know I did this, like, yeah, we succeeded in this, but could we have done something like differently or better? And then how do we move forward? Just learning that there's not one way to do things. So like just those things. And then more tactically is like, okay, so basic things like project management, like super important, right?
Right.
Showing up to meetings on time, being like, building a great culture and community. What does that look like? Because I think a lot of people aspire and they have all these like mission, vision,
Right.
but it's like living
it's just stuff on the wall.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like a lot of people are like, it's common sense, but you know, I'm not sure who said it, but it's like, unless you show and you teach other people and it becomes common knowledge, like you can't fault people for being like, how can they not have done that? It's like common sense. So just like that very, very like basic things, I think I can help other founders, and like being in a venture firm like allows you to do that because you do multiple investments a year. And who better to give advice to people who are building the next, you know, big thing and employing hundreds, if not thousands of people. It's like the people who are giving them money, right?
Yeah. It can be a very rewarding job. And you know, and again, Sophia, I just have to say, I love the fact that through your communication and your telling of these stories, I actually can see your life journey in front of me, a life journey of maturity, a life journey of learning about humility, learning about humbleness, learning that, hey, money isn't everything. Where can I be more satisfied? Well, the answer is giving back, elevating other people. And a lot, if you can correct me if I'm wrong here, Sophia, but a lot of what I'm hearing is you use the word being a light, speaking to my heart first. You're speaking to my heart, being a light to the world. But the two words that I wrote down here is that you clearly desire to be a mentor and a great coach to the next generation of entrepreneurs, the next generation of founders, and those who lack the common sense. But I mean, if common sense was common, then we wouldn't need coaches.
Yeah. No, that's true. And I feel that's like a big role of everyone, right? Like, as you're growing up, people are teaching you, and then you become the teacher, and then it's just, life is all about learning, and always just like getting better, becoming more successful. But sometimes like just, my sister said this, like sometimes it's just to do it. Like sometimes it's nice to do something without like any purpose or goal, just because we're like, I don't know if this is everyone or this is like instilled in us growing up, but it's like getting straight A's was like never enough for our parents,
And Asian parents, guys, Asian parents.
I know, and I never got gifts for like getting, I don't know, like a gold medal or something. It was expected.
I know, I never got anything. I didn't get jack.
I know, and now my friends are giving their kids like a little gift for everything, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
So you've been with Slow Ventures. You told me, I'm really curious now. You said that your 2-year tour is ending. First off, help me understand, what are these tours all about? And then secondly, where are you going to next?
So when I started there, there was a lot of needs that needed to be met for the firm, and then that really aligned with what I wanted to do. So I had like a strong background in strategy, operations, and finance. So it really helped the firm kind of build the infrastructure for that, because we just also closed our most recent fund last year of like 220 million, and which means that they're going to have a few more years and like more founders to like really invest in.
That was split into 2 funds, right? A seed and then a follow-on?
And a growth fund. Just because we've invested in over 200 something companies. So
some successful ones, if I remember. Nest, Dropbox, Loom, Behance, Product Hunt. Slack.
Blue Bottle. And a lot of like really good ones that when they become public, like they will be amazing and actually change certain like industries for like net positive, right? So then I learned like how deals are sourced, how deals are like, how do you decide what to invest in? How do you advise, founders, because we're leading some deals, but also how do you get the buy-in of like the other investors, and what is the best way to help this founder, and then also just seeing like the whole investment life cycle to exit, whether they get acquired, they die, and all that stuff. So that's pretty much what my last 2 year looked like. So what I got out of that is that, hey, I really, and this is why also my apprehension of being here is like, I don't consider myself like a venture capitalist, because I always think like, oh, a VC is the one who writes checks and like goes to like board meetings, but it's about the whole team. And I really want to work directly with founders more. And our like Slow is not like, they're not like the first rounds or in recents where they have this like whole team. So that's going to be, I'm not saying I'm moving to those 2 companies, but either a fund who's thinking of having some sort of like person who pretty much is like the go-to of the founders, so that like things are not like drop, emails are responded to, and also just someone in between who's directing like, oh, you need this, we can connect you to there. Right. Or just saying like, hey, GP, like there's a few companies that are like kind of in the same stage, like we should do something. So just being more proactive in serving the founders.
It sounds like, I mean, and we've both been around the VC world for a while now, but you could have the opportunity to create your own brand in VC, your own model a VC that just doesn't write the checks and enjoy the 2 and 20, and then enjoys the monthly status updates of their of their portfolio of investments. Right? I think you can create. And then, this is just, I'm writing this down. I'm like, why be a typical VC? Why not be the Sofia Garcia version model of a VC who is deeply embedded with these founders, helping them from ops, finance, funding, project management, as you said, some of the just learning the nuances of business culture. And there really is a need for this type of venture capitalist, someone who is more willing to go deeper with the founders. And if you go, give me just a couple more seconds here.
Mm-hmm.
That's where my heart is. My heart, because I'm an operator, right? I for the last 10 years, I've been on the receiving side of venture capital. And I believe venture capital is fundamentally failed in many ways because of the structures and because of the culture that's currently embedded, which is, hey, let's momentum invest. Let's get some money in there. 7 out of 10 of our portfolios, they're kind of sucking wind and they're dying on us, but we're just going to focus on these couple. There's a lot of net positive good that can happen with those 7 floundering portfolio founders. And so that's an area that I've been in a position of. I've been the star of the portfolio. So I get all the love. They're all pinging me, right? The investors, the LPs, they're all pinging me. I've also been on the starving end, where I was not one of the underperforming portfolio items, where we got no love, we got no coaching, no mentorship, no. Let's see if we can help you out. So I'm projecting some of my own, my own heart issues here, but
this would be my contradicting thing to that. I work in venture capital, but I don't believe that most of these companies should be raising venture capital money. If this is what the VC structure is, right? Maybe there needs to be a new form of venture capital.
I agree.
Investment, but then that has something to do with LPs or who you take money from, because it's the same, right? When you fundraise as a startup, like there's certain things that you have to do to perform so that you can get your next round of funding. And that's similar to what VCs, right? They're not investing, the GPs are not investing all of it's not their own money.
Right.
So then the LPs also they have to make money for whoever they're managing that money. So
they're incentivized differently.
Yeah. So for me, like, will I ever have my own fund? I think, people say never, but I think that's never been in my heart, or I haven't thought of that. And this is something that I'm pretty sure of myself, is that I am an amazing number 2. Like, honestly, like, get me someone who wants to do something different. I will fully support them. I will figure out a way to make that happen and implement that and execute that and hire for that. But if me, like, think of changing something structurally by myself, I think that's why,
that's why you need a good team.
Yeah, that's why you need a good team. So I'm like a good number 2. And that's what I tell everyone that I work for. I am not a visionary, and this is me not putting myself down. This is me understanding, like, where I'm strong at and who I need to be aligned with so that we can both be successful. And that's taken a long, long time for me, and countless, like, discussions and, talks with both my peers and mentors and coaches. That's, like, I'm very, very clear on what I'm good at. And at this point in my career and life, I want to, like, double down on that versus trying to like make myself better on the things that I'm okay,
Well, I'm
just okay with.
Well, I love the fact that you're willing to be authentic and be honest and candid about the fact that, frankly, it's just easier to be yourself, right? It's so much work to be something you're not. It's so much work to try to improve something that's never going to be your biggest strength. I'm a big fan of playing to your strengths, owning those, being self-aware about them, and saying, hey, I'm weak in this area. That's why you're here. Or I'm weak in this area, and that's why you're here. And so I love that self-awareness about you. We're rolling close to the end of this, so I want to end off with one final question, and I'm really excited to know what your answer is about this. Final question for today's conversation is this. What's the most exciting thing? So we just passed the decade, right? So what's the most exciting thing that you're looking forward to in 2020 and beyond? What's the most exciting thing, Sophia, for you? What are you looking forward to?
Slowing down. I'm kidding. Not kidding.
Slow Ventures.
Yeah, I know, right? You know what? I'm really excited to, it's like more is not always better. You know, it's like I think at least for 2020, not so much for the next decade, because I want to take things slow. I've always been a planner, so I'm like, I know my identity, I know my purpose. So from here till like the end of my life, like let me take the journey and actually enjoy it. So I want to be more present. I want to be able to like learn how to prioritize, because I think finding balance, you know, is kind of like a day-to-day thing, but let me prioritize like the relationships that are important for me. So I'm like very excited about that. There's definitely some things that both professionally and personally that I want to do. And I'm like trying to find a way to continuously kind of blend those things together. And I know it's like kind of counter to like some people who are like, hey, you should, you know, like we're always working, but I actually enjoy meeting people.
I don't believe it.
You know what though? I mean, I do unplug, and I do like, you know, like I stopped doing emails and things that I don't enjoy, but having conversations with people, like listening to their ideas and like their desires, or at least like problem solving things, like I enjoy doing that. And if I stop doing that, my family's gonna get crazy, because then I just like problem solve their lives. So, but
and your family never wants you to fix them.
Yes. I mean, I'm still learning that, but yeah, like that's what I'm really excited about. And just continue like learning and meeting more people, like you know.
Which I feel blessed. I feel absolutely blessed to have this conversation, Sophia. Thanks so much for your time. For everyone out there, you founders, you entrepreneurs, make sure that you check out Slow. And all the information for Slow and all the information on Sophia is going to be down in the show notes below. Thanks again, Sophia, for joining the show.
Thank you. Bye.
True Startup Story Time. Guys, as a founder, I'm often asked, what are my go-to tools and technology that I use as I begin a startup? Well, that's easy. One of them is Dropbox. Dropbox is the easiest way to ensure that all your files and documents are synced on all devices, whether it be mobile, your local desktop, or remote. We want to thank Dropbox for supporting vchunting.com, and make sure to get your 30-day trial free at dropbox.com/business. Well, wasn't that a humbling and authentic conversation with Sophia Garcia from Slow Ventures? It was just great. It was great talking to a human. And it's not to say that the other VCs that we've talked to aren't human. It's just Sophia has a way of communicating that is truly from the heart. And I could tell in so many of her answers that she was truly digging, not from her mind for the answers, but from her heart for the answers. And I love the fact that she's open and willing to share this type of conversation, because before we even hit the record, if I may say, before we even hit the record, she had told me that she's not on Twitter, not on Instagram, not on social sites, just doesn't like putting herself out there and trying to be someone she's not. And that was pretty much the context of us coming into the conversation today. And it just really, really humbled me. I love the fact that she has an immigrant story. And I think these types of stories are never told enough. The immigrant story is a story of hustle. It's a story of perseverance. It's a story of grit. And every immigrant that I've ever met, or a child, let's say, of immigrant parents, has always told me relatively the same thing, is that they, and often in many cases, these individuals are so much more well-grounded in life. And the reason is because they had to see their parents do the unimaginable. Go from one country to another, often with almost zero savings usually, starting from the dirt, building up whatever they needed to build up to support their family, grow a career, give their children opportunities to go to university and higher education. I mean, she's a living, walking, breathing light in this world, positivity, and it was just so great to talk to Sophia. There's so much that I wanted to dig into with her. I mean, there are all these questions I had written down that we never even got to because, frankly, I was too enthralled with the stories that she had, the things that she wanted to share about giving back to her people, the Filipino people, giving back to the motherland and wanting to actually help people. One of the things that we talked about off stream was this idea of filling in for the messy middle, filling in for the VCs where VCs aren't doing a good job. And I don't mind talking about it here because I've been on both sides of the spectrum, as I told her. I've been on the side of the portfolio that's doing extremely well, getting tons and tons of love from the GPs and the LPs. To also being on the side of the investment portfolio that isn't doing well, where we get no love. We aren't treated like humans. We're not treated with dignity or respect because we're not performing up to whatever the metrics are. And so there really is a need there to fill in that gap, to help all founders, to help all entrepreneurs grow as individuals, grow as people, grow as operators, even if they're not in the top 10 percentile of that portfolio. Everyone should learn. And that's one of the things that I believe. I believe that venture capital funds should be funds that help humans grow, help people grow, not just the top tier, not just the successful investments or the ones that are tracking or trending or have some sort of traction, right? They should be incubators of improving people's lives and leveling them all up, even if it doesn't matter where they are on the portfolio. So I just loved talking with Sophia about that idea and what she's doing to help improve founders' lives and having those conversations, whereas VCs won't. They don't have time, they don't have interest, they aren't incentivized to be able to do these types of things and actually provide the value that they could be providing to their entire portfolio. If you're out there and you're interested, Slow Ventures is a generalist fund. They got lots of money, they have lots of success behind them. And so if you're a founder, you're an entrepreneur, make sure that you check them out. Make sure that you also connect with Sophia Garcia on her LinkedIn, because she's not anywhere else. Connect with her there. But if you want more information on this podcast and all the notes and my trail notes and all that fun stuff, the field guide, the field notes, make sure that you find your way over to vchunting.com/Sophia Garcia. Thanks so much for being here, guys. I love being your host of this VC Hunting show. It's great to connect with wonderful people who are trying their best in humility to be net positive. I love it. Guys, we'll see you next time.